One, and we are recording with the one and only Mr. Howard Bloom, who last time we both agreed is the moonwalking Stephen Hawking, the physicist, the
What a phrase.
the beautiful, the physicist, the genius, and we've covered several of your books before. This week we're going through the global brain, and I think, and I told you in an email, I think the global brain is the answer to the question posed in the God problem. But, and I know you say you don't want to do it because you don't sound humble, but I'm asking you, please introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are.
Oh my God. So I'm the author of 7 books. I appear on 545 radio stations every Wednesday night at 1:06 in the morning Eastern time on the show Coast to Coast. Channel 4 TV in Britain calls me the Einstein, Newton, Darwin, and Freud of the 21st century. Gear magazine calls me the philosopher at the end of the universe and the next Stephen Hawking. And it goes on from there. I've been working ever since I was 12 years old on a grand unified theory of everything in the universe, including sex, violence, and the human soul. That's been coming along nicely in the many, many decades since then. And that's about it. I mean, one of my books, the one that we're about to talk about tonight, Global Brain, the Office of the Secretary of Defense threw a forum based on that book and brought in people from the State Department, the Energy Department, DARPA, IBM, and MIT. The sheik who made Dubai what it is today named a racehorse after one of my books, despite the fact that I'm a Zionist atheist Jew. And the former head of minister of development for Dubai, who runs their $33 billion real estate operation that, among other things, has built the tallest building in the world. He went in front of a group he had co-founded, the Arab Business and Economic Forum, and said, there is a book I particularly resonate with. It contains the future of Dubai. And he proceeded to read passages from that same book. And again, he's a Muslim. I'm a Zionist atheist Jew. The 11th president of India, who was one of the biggest superstars in the history of politics in India, Dr. APJ Kalam, and I collaborated for 4 years. And there's now a Kalam Center in India because Dr. Kalam died a few years ago, unfortunately. But there's a picture of me on the wall. And in the film, The Grand Unified Theory of Howard Bloom, the head of the Kalam Center points to the picture and says, Dr. Kalam truly loved Howard Bloom. Well, I truly loved him too. And he too is a Muslim. So, and the list goes on and on from there. It's impossible to remember all the details and facts at once.
And you know, all those other little names he worked with: Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, ZZ Top, and those little.
I literally did forget about those. Yeah.
Jesus.
So to put that in context, so in 1976, I wanted to do a scientific expedition into the dark underbelly where new myths and movements are made. And in the process, I ended up tripping into the rock and roll industry, something I knew nothing about. And I founded a PR firm in the music industry based on new ways of doing publicity. And we worked with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen, Run DMC, Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, David Byrne, ZZ Top, Joan Jett, people like that, Chaka Khan. So then in 1988, I got really sick and was stuck in bed for 15 years. And it was an opportunity. It gave me a chance to get out of this field expedition into popular culture and to go back to my science full time. And while I was in bed, I wrote 3 books and founded 2 international scientific groups. Lived on the internet. So I got to experience what Americans in general have been experiencing over the last year and a half with COVID, that is living online. I was thrown into that involuntarily in 1988. So I was very familiar with the world of living online when the COVID crisis happened.
And so the book we covered last time, The God Problem, it's I think it tackles, and we'll go through it quickly because that's not what this episode is, but it tackles the problem that I know I discovered, being a science major, is as you break things down more and more, and these are just molecules, they're protons, they're leptons, they're quarks, there's four forces, and it's like, what is this? This is just, it's all just shit bouncing around. But then it's always you flip a coin once, and if it lands on its side, it's like, oh, that was insane. But the way you describe it is like, that's all the universe is like flipping a coin, and it's always landing on the side. It's always the most absurd of all possible outcomes. And it almost seems like it's like, well, how do we discount God? And so I listened to Global Brain 3 times in a row, and it got me
Wow.
thinking towards, but it got me thinking towards Global Brain is really is. So I think we summed up the last episode at the end saying the God problem is really, it's a discussion of the phenomena of synergy. 1+1 is 3. The it's greater than the sum of its parts. I think that's what Global Brain is. It's this thing that it is the answer to the God problem. All this stuff is moving around, and it seems there's a sort of a hyper phenomena that happens that, none of the cells in your body are thinking, we're doing a podcast today with Howard Bloom. They're all, they're shooting out their proteins, they're getting rid of old cells. There's, electrophysiology, and there's gluons, and there's glucose, and they're uptaking this and sodium here and norepinephrine there. And to them, it's all just squishy bouncing around, and you can get to bigger structures, the organs, and then the organ systems and all, but not a single one of them read Global Brain. Yet here I am, and there's this, if you broke all of them down and looked at all the cells and, tissue slides, those like great Harvard animations of the interior of the cell, it's all great. Where do you see the interview with Howard Bloom in there? You don't. Yet that is all I am, is just this. So then you have to scale it up. What are all of us? Well, there's 7 billion humans, and we have presidents, we have countries, and we have borders, and we have war. And is there something that we don't see, just as all of our cells don't see Tommy, they don't see Howard, yet here we are, and everyone listening, it's this weird sort, it's like, this discovery of like, radio waves or something. They existed all throughout all of human history, but we just didn't know they were there. A caveman couldn't comprehend Wi-Fi, but it's there. Are we doing something right now? Is there some hyper consciousness or Global Brain that is working towards something? And is it even aware of us? Does it look at humans the same way? Or is it not even a conscious thing, but rather an entity that does behave? A gold atom doesn't think anything of being a gold atom, yet, they used gold leafing on the inside of the first hydrogen bomb. Like, are we doing something? Are we moving towards things? Is COVID, I've talked about this before, is it a natural feedback from the earth? Do we have too many people? Are we burning through too many resources? Is it some natural, it's the equivalent of, a mosquito around your ear, and you're fuck that, you can get it away. Is the earth just, oh man, the oceans, the acidity of the oceans is going up, CO2 is rising, it just shoots out. Is that it smacking? COVID, Ebola, bubonic plague. Is that what this is? Is that what tsunamis are? So yeah, I think Global Brain is the answer to the God problem. It's the phenomena of synergy that it's happening. It shouldn't happen, yet it's happening, and we really can't. A horse is smarter than an ant. We are smarter than a horse. We can always look down at the thing dumber than us. A dog looks at a bug, and it probably in some weird way knows that it's smarter than the bug. But you can never look up. You can never, maybe I can look at you and go, Howard Bloom's smarter than me. You might look at Stephen Hawking and go, I think he's smarter than me. But not on that level of a dog looking at a human. It not only can it not understand calculus, it can't understand that it doesn't understand calculus. Yet here we look at it, we go, it's a dog. It can't do math. Are we forming some sort of, is there a God consciousness, and not in the Buddhist sense, but is there, is Gaia real? Is Gaia a thing? And I know I'm rambling now, Howard.
No, you're rambling brilliantly. So, okay, the question the God problem. I get my books mixed up. The question in the God problem is this. You just put it very well. There are 100 trillion cells in your body. Not a single one of them has any awareness of the fact that there is something higher called a Tommy Carrigan. And yet, the Tommy Carrigan is not only as real as those cells, it's more real because those cells, every minute, a billion of those cells in your bloodstream die. And yet the Tommy Carrigan-iciousness, that overarching personality not only remains real, it determines what step this 100 million cells are going to take next. Is it going to go down to the grocery store? Is it going to go to bed? What is it? That's called top-down causality. And so the big question is, where the fuck does the emergent property of a Tommy Carrigan come from? And the other question you just summed up was, okay, so there are 7 billion of us on the planet right now. Are we individuals, like neurons in the brain, a part of something bigger, of a higher identity that we just can't see any more than individual neurons or blood cells can see the Tommy Carrigan? And that too is the puzzle of emergent properties. The global brain is, to me, what I'm looking at is, there was a lot of writing back when I was writing Global Brain. There was actually another book called Global Brain by Peter Russell. And Peter Russell said the global brain was coming about because of the existence of modern technology and the internet. And my book was a counter to his book. It said, no, you don't understand something. The global brain has been around for 3.5 billion years. Bacteria were the first creatures on the face of the planet. They're our great-great-great-grandmothers. Bacteria get together in groups of 7 trillion. That's one group of bacteria has more individuals than all the humans who have ever lived on the face of the earth. And together they make what Eshel Ben Jacob, the head of the condensed matter physics department at the University of Tel Aviv, and another collaborator, comrade, friend of mine, calls a creative web. It's a creative web that searches out its environment, looking for new sources of food, that keeps track basically of when it has a problem, that takes that problem back to presumably the center of the group, and re-engineers its own genome, its own gene string, its own string of genes, in order to confront that problem. And then different communities of bacteria were exchanging information with other communities way far, far away by letting genetic fragments drift. And some of those genetic fragments contained the innovations created by a bacterial colony, and those innovations spread. They were added to the genome of other bacteria all over the place. And there's a basic rule of complex adaptive systems, a basic rule of learning machines. Bacterial colonies are learning machines. And the basic rule is, in the book of Matthew, Jesus says, to he who hath it shall be given, from he who hath not, even what he hath shall be taken away. Those who've got a lot will get more. Those who don't have a lot will get less. Sounds totally inappropriate. I mean, just morally repugnant, but it's the way things work. And so I'm getting my fucking books mixed up. Global Brain says that rule has been in operation since the beginning of life. It means that the bacteria or groups of bacteria in a colony that have got a handle on things, resources are shifted their way, attention is shifted their way. Imagine you're part of a search party of 10,000 bacteria, because bacteria don't go out and search as individuals. They do it as teams. And you have run into a desert where there is nothing to eat and where it's poisonous. You wrap up your genome in a little bundle and you commit pre-programmed cell deaths. You commit suicide. And your bundle is a warning package to the folks at home when it reaches them. It says, I went here. There is nothing here. It's dangerous. Do not come in this direction. It gives off, my friend Valerius Geist, another collaborator of mine, who's one of the world's leading experts on large mammal behavior, says that all forms of communication come down to attraction cues and repulsion cues. If you're part of that search party that discovers a landscape of terror, and you wrap up your genome, you're giving off repulsion cues. Do not follow me. Do not come here. Do not waste your time and energy or your lives. Meanwhile, if I'm a part of a 10,000 team per individual search party that goes out searching the landscape for new food, and I find new food, hell, my group gives off attraction cues. My group gains influence, and other bacteria may well follow where I've been. Plus, we will plant ourselves on the food, me and my 10,000 sisters, and we will just suck up that food for all it's worth. And with that surplus, we'll create more armies of curious, eager bacteria who go out on parties of 10,000 and search the landscape. So that law, to he who hath it shall be given, from he who hath not, even what he hath shall be taken away, is operable in all of life.
It's a form of bacterial sonar.
Yeah, your immune system is just loaded with it. In your immune system, there are billions of different kinds of cells just waiting for the chance to get their hooks into an enemy. And most of them are useless most of the time. And they live like the homeless on the streets of San Francisco. They live at the periphery. They have no influence, and they get very little in the way of resources. They're just barely kept alive. But if a new thing like the Delta variant of the COVID, or a new RL variant that appeared yesterday, and I believe Kentucky, shows up, if it shows up in our body, the popular immune system cells of the moment will go over and check it out, and they may well discover that they don't have the secret to penetrating it. Meanwhile, one of the homeless cells may well amble up to one of these enemies and discover it has the precise secret to unlock that virus and to disable it. And all of a sudden, that virus that was homeless all this time will become wildly popular, will gain tremendous influence, will be given incredible resources, and will multiply like crazy, will turn itself into a tribe that attacks the new enemies. To he who hath it shall be given, from he who hath not, even what he hath shall be taken away. And one of the things that led me to this was I was sitting at an outdoor cafe on Sunset Boulevard in LA with two friends. And the friends, one of the friends would soon represent Madonna. Both of us were working on Lionel Richie. She was an attorney. And she would eventually work with Madonna and would help Madonna found her record company. And then she would run that record company. So we were sitting around, and they were fascinated by the rise of Oprah Winfrey, because even important people are fascinated by the rise of even more important people. To he who hath it shall be given. And they knew I was going to go the next morning to meet with my client, Bette Midler. And Bette Midler had just had a baby. And they were giving me advice on what very exclusive store I should go to buy the baby a $300 sweater. Now, not far away, there was an avenue in LA that houses its homeless. Who needed the $300 more? Bette Midler, who has everything she could possibly want, or one of those homeless people to whom $300 would have been a fortune. And yet, my friends were advising me on how to give a present to Bette Midler, who had everything that she wanted. To he who hath it shall be given. From he who hath not, even what he hath shall be taken away. In other words, that was successful. And as a result, in the same way that one of the homeless-backed immune system cells that suddenly discovers it has the key to an invader, becomes popular, everybody gloms around it. Everybody wants to contribute to its efforts. And the poverty-ridden cells in the immune system that have never had a chance, they've never been the key to defeating any enemy at all, they're deprived of resources and overlooked and have no influence whatsoever. So basically, all the resources flow to people who have a sense of control over things. Let's look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump really messed up this country in the 4 years that he was president. All of his predictions were false. For example, he said that COVID would be gone by Easter of 2020. Yeah. He proved to be wrong. He proved to be wrong on a whole bunch of other predictions. With any normal politician, that would destroy him. But because Donald Trump has narcissistic personality disorder, he lives in a world of delusion. And in his world of delusion, every prediction he's ever made was true. For example, his mailers these days say, President Trump was right all along. And it gives a list of 10 things that he was right on. And at the top of the list is hydrochloroquine use for COVID. Well, hydrochloroquine use for COVID has been proven over and over and over again not to work at all. But because Donald Trump has such absolute certainty that everything he's ever said was brilliant and totally on target, he projects a confidence of what he calls a winner. And he sends out roughly 6 emails a day between he and Don Jr. asking for money. And the money comes flowing in. He has a war chest at this point of $100 million. Why? Because he projects the confidence of a winner who has control over everything and has made accurate predictions about everything. Because he's allowed to do that because, unlike you and me, who would be so ashamed if we made all of these false predictions that we'd crawl under a bed and hide, he's incapable of seeing his failures and is absolutely convinced of his brilliance and of his accuracy in everything that he's ever said. And that attracts money, among other things. It attracts influence, tremendous influence. But the general rule of the system is the resources flow, the money flows, the attention flows, the love flows to those who have demonstrated a sense of control. And look at Simone Biles, who does just about every single one of her moves brilliantly. That is the epitome of control. And is she ignored or is she loved? She's loved because to he who hath it shall be given. And what is given focuses on people who have actually demonstrated they can control circumstances. And by focusing on those who have shown they can control circumstances and taking resources away from those who have not shown anything of the sort, the system grows smarter. The system focuses on solutions, on building solutions. And when those solutions don't work, building and finding new ones through this process. So this is one of the most important things that makes a complex adaptive system work. Peter Russell's book said we would not have a global brain until the internet fully took hold, the World Wide Web. And my book said, no, we've had a global brain here from the beginning, and its elements are built into our biology in that rule of to he who hath it shall be given, and from he who hath what not, even what he hath shall be taken away.
I just thought of something. I several notes. I was going to say, yeah, given it, right? It's like when the Super Bowl MVP gets a new car is awarded. And it's like, why the hell did you just give Tom Brady an Escalade, right? What does it matter? But I was just thinking about this whole thing, kind of let's say the Gaia hypothesis, right? And let's say like it releases COVID. What if what it's doing is, I love the idea of, you send out the bacteria and you see which ones die, and it's a form of like bacterial sonar. You're pinging off things. Right. What if what it's doing, what if what Gaia is doing right now, the global brain, it's going, The next step in humanity, the 2001 A Space Odyssey, when it uses the thumb and it picks up the club and the bum
Right.
bum, or the fish coming out of the water and it has legs. What if it's going, oh, there's something better than humans? It's a computer, right? It uses less resources. It has less of a carbon footprint. It doesn't need a day off. It doesn't argue with each other. They don't get emotional. They don't scream. They don't kill each other. What if what it does is it releases COVID? That means everyone's locked at home. And what do we see? There's a chip shortage. But what really that means is demand is going up. We're ramping up technology more and more. What if it's moving all the resources into going, we need to create a bigger, better silicon infrastructure? So it's going, everyone stay home, only communicate through screens. Bandwidth is going up, resolution's going up, high fidelity audio. The right next to me, you can't see it. I have 8 hard drives. I'll have them all linked together. It's 100 terabytes. It's 100
Amazing.
terabytes right there. And that's more I mean, you bring that back to, but so what if it's all just accelerating to this point, right? You and I are doing this. It's on Rumble, it's on YouTube, it's on Odyssey, it's on BitChute, it's on Spotify, it's shared on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. What if it's pushing everything towards creating a more resilient like not carbon fiber, optical fiber, silicon network? It's created an actual global brain. It's pushing everything towards technology. I mean, it might be something that's where we're shifting entirely. Maybe that's the purpose of a pandemic, is it goes, enough with the fucking highways and everything. That's all. Why do you need to get in a big metal hunk, a big car that's made out of metal, that's ripped out of the soil, it's melted and smelted and pounded into these pieces? You have rubber tires, you're using gasoline that's ripped out of whatever third world nation, or it's plunged down from the bottom of the ocean, and you're moving on these asphalt roads, which causes the big heat islands, and it's fucking up the atmosphere. We can do this a lot quicker. Everybody stay home and just talk through a screen. I mean, that might be the global brain, as it's going. That is one way. The apoptosis, that is what global warming is. It's going, that's not the way. That's not the way. And it's looking at things like Zoom or 4G, 5G, 6G, and it's going, that's the way. And it's to he who hath, and it's giving more this way. I don't know. I mean, maybe what are the 2 richest guys in the world doing? Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They're going to space. Is the brain, is the global earth, what is it doing? What does this cell do when it starts to divide, right? It starts to break apart, and you see all the little strings and the chromatids and the everything's. Is that what earth is doing? And it's Mars, is humanity breaking up, and we're shooting little rovers over there, and we're like, is it good? Is it safe to land? We think there's water. Send over a Mars orbiter. What are the richest guys doing? They're taking all their money. Back in the day, it was, you build a big palace of marble and you get a bunch of whores and cocaine. Now it's no, let's go to Mars. That's where is that what the global brain's doing? Are we going through mitosis?
Well, the global brain is doing that, but it's been doing it
Forever.
from the very beginning. And the big mystery is this. At the very beginning of the universe, quarks came popping out of a rapidly expanding sheet of space-time and speed. And those quarks had distinct properties. We're able to characterize them. There are 16 different kinds of them, only 16 different kinds in a universe with gazillions of new particles is astonishing. It means that we're not in a 6 monkeys at 6 typewriters universe. We're not in a random universe. We're not in a universe that merely stumbles across things through trial and error. No, that's not the way things are done. That's not the way discoveries are made. So how are discoveries made? The quarks get together in groups of 3. And some are groups of 3 like this, and some are groups of 3 like this. And those groups of 3, according to Aristotle, who said that if you understand the elements of things and you understand their laws, you understand everything. And which was the basic message of reductionism: break things apart to their smallest elements and you will understand things. That comes from Aristotle 2,300 years ago. Well, the fact is there's a law that works in the other direction. One physicist calls it the constructal law. You take 3 quarks and put them together. Now, according to Aristotelian logic, what should you get when you put 3 quarks together? Garbage in, garbage out. It's all quarks. Quarks. You would get the properties of quarks. That is not what you get at all, Tommy. You get whole new properties called a proton and a neutron. What? How in the world did those things come about? Well, the work I'm doing for the book after the one I'm writing right now says that there is a stairway to heaven, that there is a stairway of complexity, and that there are given realities that have been realized, stair steps we've already walked, and then there's this whole invisible set of stair steps above us. And those stair steps contain the next supersized surprise. And the cosmos is constantly popping out supersized surprises, like Tommy Carrigan and Howard Bloom and the internet. And is that a matter of trial and error? Not really. It's a matter of purposeful invention, purposeful creativity. But is the internet as built into the structure of the future of the cosmos, the stair steps above us that we cannot see, the way that neutron and proton, those two properties, were built into the possibilities of mere quarks dancing around in a sheet of space, time, and speed? There's another example. 300,000 years later, the universe had been a scalding cauldron. It had been a scalding soup. And scalding means that particles are moving at super speed. Well, that means that particles were colliding with each other at speeds well beyond the speed of two colliding bullets, ricocheting off each other, and then bouncing off of another particle and ricocheting back again, over and over and over again. Well, 300,000 years later, things cooled down, which means that the movement of things decreased, their speed decreased. And all of a sudden, these gigantic things, relatively speaking, the size of the Empire State Building, had an inanimate need. And these little tiny things, the size of my fist, relatively speaking, discovered they had an inanimate need. And they got together, the giant things and the tiny things got together in teams. And they were protons, a proton circled by an electron. Now, again, back to Aristotelian logic. What have we got here? A proton is ganged up with an electron, as impossible as that seemed, because the two are so vastly different. But what should we get out of this? Well, garbage in, garbage out. We've put in a proton and an electron. We should get a proton and an electron. That's simple. Understand the laws of the elements, the proton and the electron, and you understand everything, said Aristotle. Aristotle was so wrong, it's ridiculous. You get this whole new set of properties the cosmos had never seen before, called an atom, called hydrogen, called helium, called lithium. And these are properties that come in the way that Tommy Carrigan comes from 100 trillion cells working together. These are properties that come from a new form of social teamwork. So was the discovery of the internet an invention, or was it a discovery? Was it something that we put together, but we could have put together a million other things? Or was it something as implicit in the invisible stair steps of the future as atomness and hydrogenness and heliumness was for those initial protons and electrons getting together? I don't know. I think it's a little of both. But I don't think that this universe works by the sort of trial and error that we generally conceive. I don't think it's a random universe. I think that it works within defined limits that constantly move forward to the next invisible stair step. And when we climb it, it produces the next supersized surprise.
Yeah, and none of it's by accident. It's not, wow, can you believe we invented flat screens? And it's like, this was all like preordained, right? It's
sort of. I mean, I rebel against even that thought, even though I just enunciated it.
Yeah, but it seems like that's what it is. It seems like it's not that someone invented it. It seems like someone like uncovering a dinosaur bone.
Right.
It's like, this is the internet. It's like, oh, we've brushed off enough dust and we found fiber optic cables.
Right. And at the same time, we humans have worked very hard to invent these things. There's
Yeah.
another principle in my body of 7 books, and it's that opposites are joined at the hip.
You know what's great is that this podcast is kind of an example of global brain, because
Interesting.
you keep saying I keep messing up my fucking books. Well, no, it's an emergent phenomena from all of your books coming together, and
Right.
it's coming through in this. Which one was it? It doesn't matter which one it was. It's all the same collective work of Howard Bloom. It's so I was thinking, it's like I think it's Alan Watts said about like meditation. He said meditation is a lot like some thieves who just got, the cops saw them. The thieves run into the first story of an apartment building. And the cops run in, so the thieves go up to the first floor. Well, the cops look up, so the cops start running up. Well, the thieves go to the second floor, and they keep going up and up and up, but there's no roof. It just goes forever. So when you're
Right.
meditating and you go, "Oh, I am the self," well, no, that's an observation. The self is the thing that observed that. Oh, so I'm that self. Well, no, you're the thing that observed that. So with global brain, if we can ever put our thumb on what the brain is, let's say, we create some AI, some strong AI, and we go, oh, this is global brain. Well, are these systems of AI, are they oblivious to the hyper global brain? And then when that comes about, is that oblivious to can we ever actually know it? Or is there always a more complex synergistic phenomenon, garbage in, garbage out bullshit? It's what happens when we put 2 cells together. Well, now you have 2. What about 4? Well, now you have 4. What if we put together 100 trillion? You have Howard Bloom writing about ZZ Top in a metal cage down a highway in Texas. What the fuck? It's so, can we ever know it? Once we figure it out, is that no longer the thing?
Well, okay, that was another brilliant soliloquy, and we do know. We call ourselves tribes. We call ourselves members of a religion. We call ourselves member of a nation, and we call ourselves members of a global civilization. So we do sense the higher identities that arise from us. And there are moments when you have an ecstatic experience. At a rock concert, you have an ecstatic experience, for example. You're lifted out of your normal self. You feel a part of something higher. When people go to war, they're lifted out of themselves and exhilarated, or they used to be back in the days of the First World War, and they felt they were a part of something higher than themselves. And they had this bliss that comes from submission to something higher than yourself. But in those instances of that bliss, they sensed the higher emergent property, the personality, the emergent personality of the group of which they were a part. So we do get a sense of the personality of our group. And in fact, it's the role of people like me who are articulators to articulate the soul of a group, thus articulating the larger self in which we are all individual selves. So yes, we do get a sense of ourselves, and frequently we talk about what is necessary to uplift humanity. We are conceiving of the whole body of us, or all 7 billion of us, as part of a higher whole. But the question is, where do these higher wholes come from? How do they arise? To what extent are they built into the structure of the future of the cosmos? There is a structure of the future. And to what extent are they the product of individual invention? Remember, America was an invention. Other nations had called themselves nations, but thought that they had been on their land since time immemorial, and they had been one group of people. They didn't put it this way, but genetically, for a long time, there were pure French people, and there were pure English people, and there were pure German people in this view of things. So they sensed being part of something greater. And then America had the audacity to come along and say, we're not a people based on being in the land for 800 years. We're not a people who are united by tribal bonds that we've only reproduced by having sex with people in our own group, in our own tribe. We've kept our germline pure. No, as Abraham Lincoln said it, we are a nation based on a principle. Or we are a nation based on a bunch of thoughts. We, the people of the United States, declare these things to be self-evident: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. These are all ideas. So this is the basis of a whole new kind of identity for a group, an identity based on ideas. Now, in fact, ideas have been giving groups identity and making war with each other since at least the days of the rise of Judaism, of Buddhism, roughly 800 BC. But those were the days when people thought that the higher power that came from their individual contributions was a god. The Babylonians felt that their identity was summed up in the god Marduk, and Marduk had been excluded from the group of the gods because Babylon felt that it was treated like shit, that it really wasn't important in the Fertile Crescent. And then the Babylonians beat the crap out of everybody else, and they revised their mythology, and they said that Marduk had held off the flood of waters that would annihilate humanity, and so Marduk had been elevated to a top position in the tribe of gods. In other words, they perceived their own movement up in the hierarchy of groups in the Middle East as a god moving up. Well, we don't have to do that by 1776. Instead of that, we went to secular principles, and we founded a nation based on principles. And Abraham Lincoln said in the Gettysburg Address that the Civil War would determine whether that form of government based on a set of principles created by human beings could persist on the face of the earth. So yes, we do censor emergent properties.
What's kind of dark to think about is, he who had will be given more, and to he who hath not will be taken away. Man, is the military industrial complex, this machine.
Oh my God.
Think about it though. This machine that, I remember the first time I realized this in high school, that the military industrial complex, evil, but it is the most efficient and evolved organism in that it can point to a place and go, there's resources. We needed a reason for a war there. Oh, dictator needs some freedom. We go there, and then we get the resources. The corporations that mine it and use it get all of the money from it and the resources. You develop more weapons, and then the guys, they lobby to the politicians. The politicians print more money for them. The politicians get a job in the revolving door. The machine gets stronger and stronger, and there's who watches the watchman. This thing is just getting stronger and stronger, and it's evil. It's pure evil. But if we just remove our feelings about it and it just look at it, I mean, what about like the megalodon, right? The shark that's bigger and meaner than anything else. Well, how do you counteract that? There was no committee on ocean life that went, that shark's too big. No, the megalodon fucking ate you. If you went, that shark's eating all the food, it just came and ripped you to pieces. It didn't matter. And then eventually, well, it's not here anymore. Is the military industrial complex, is that the organism that's getting more, and it now has the ability to plunder anything it wants? And it's like you talked about with the variants, we don't have anything to fight against it. It seems like JFK tried, and we saw what happened there. Is the military industrial complex is that the emergent property?
Buzz Aldrin calls the space military industrial complex the Darth Vader of space.
Yeah.
The space military industrial complex is astonishingly inefficient, produces subpar products, and overcharges for them. In the area of space, the James Webb Space Telescope, the next great space telescope to go up into the sky, which is supposed to finally be launched this year. It was put into motion around 2013. The estimated cost was $1 billion, and the estimated time frame was 3 years. That's 2013. Now it has cost $10 billion, and it still hasn't gone up. It still hasn't gone up. In space, the space military industrial complex was trying to convince Congress and the Senate that this young punk named Elon Musk would never fly, and he would never fly safely, and that they had a monopoly on safety. They knew how to make spacecraft that were for real, and you could count on not to kill human beings. Of course, they had built the space shuttle, which had blown up, but nonetheless. So they went to work on something called the Space Launch System, which is their rocket to take us to Mars and the moon, and a capsule from Boeing, which was old technology. I mean, 1960s technology. So it should have been easy. Well, the Space Launch System costs $3 billion, $3.5 billion a year, every single year, and it has never flown. And it will be too expensive to fly. When it flies, it will cost $2 billion per flight. Well, Elon Musk with a Falcon Heavy, I think you can get something in the range of 500 flights of Elon Musk's Falcon Heavy for that money. In other words, you can buy a space program to populate the entire solar system with that money, just that $2 billion, if you use Elon Musk stuff. And Elon Musk has just put the first 4 commercial passengers, normal citizens like you and me, into space. That's a big deal. Meanwhile, what's happening with Boeing's capsule that is supposed to be the safe, reliable alternative? The first time they tried to fly it, its software had a glitch and it never made it. It was supposed to dock with the International Space Station, never made it to the International Space Station. That was about a year and a half ago. They're still working on retooling it, while Elon has now flown his capsules with humans, I believe 4 times. 4 times. They haven't flown once. They're nowhere near flying. If we had to depend on them, America as a civilization would die right now on the spot. Now imagine if this kind of thing is going on with military weapons, with the most advanced military weapons. The space industrial complex is using the military budget as an excuse to siphon money out of the US Treasury into its own bank accounts. That's all. And it could be easily producing subpar products the way that Boeing produced a subpar space capsule. That still hasn't gone up. So yeah, the country's in trouble, and all of this impacts a complex adaptive system. At what point do those who attract the most attention and the most resources get so powerful that even if they fail, the way Donald Trump has failed over and over and over again, even if they fail, they will be able to hold on to power? Well, that may well sicken a complex adaptive system, a collective learning machine, and cause it to move from number 1 on the hierarchy, the totem pole, social totem pole of civilizations, the social totem pole of nations, to number 2, number 3, or to become, as England has become, a has-been, a country that had its heyday in the days of the development of a new technology, the steam engine, and then thought that their preeminence in the world would last forever. But it didn't, because they didn't move on to the next technologies. Germany moved on to electricity, and America moved on to electricity. And England, even though they'd invented the process of electrical power generation, did not. And so the First World War, at the end of the First World War, England was seriously crippled. At the end of the Second World War, England was a minor power, and America was a major power. But look at us. We have, ever since we listened to Ronald Reagan, who told us that when somebody from the government comes knocking on your door saying, I'm here to help, that's when your problems begin. His program was about shrinking government. But one of the things that he shrunk was investment in infrastructure. America at that point had the most advanced infrastructure in the world. Today, we are behind third world countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. Go to those countries. I put together 2 programs in Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia. One was reperceiving leadership. The other was the Asian Space Technology Summit. Those are two things that I founded. And you go to Kuala Lumpur, and their infrastructure is far more advanced than ours. I went to Chengdu, China, and didn't get to look at the, I was flown there to talk about harvesting solar power in space and transmitting it to Earth, which would solve all of our carbon problems, all of our greenhouse gas problems. And I didn't get to see the infrastructure, but they have more miles of high-speed rail than any other nation on the face of the earth right now. And they're going to make Boeing look obsolete because they've been studying how to make planes for a long time. And they're trying hard to make our space program look obsolete too. But fortunately, we don't have NASA. NASA's in the way. It's committed to the Space Launch System, the rocket too expensive to fly, and to the Orion capsule. But Elon Musk, all on his own, he's an immigrant from South Africa. In the days when railing against immigrants is wildly popular. And he has single-handedly elevated our future possibilities. Now, of course, the American system is built to give more freedom, we think, to a person like Elon Musk than Europe, China, Japan, than any other nation on earth. But we have to maintain that. What does that mean? It means we have to maintain our diversity. We have to maintain our pluralism, our tolerance, our freedom of speech. Those are our basic characteristics. That's what makes us, Japan knew that it was going to win World War II, absolutely knew it. And how did it know it? Because it bought into the same racist philosophy that its partner, Germany, held. And the Japanese believed they were the only race that were children of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, that they were a special elevated race, and that they had racial purity. And America was a mongrel country. So America could never possibly beat Japan. Well, guess who won? Japan or the United States. The mongrel nation won because there is a certain power to diversity, pluralism. So we have to learn the lessons of what makes a complex adaptive system work, what makes it smart, because you and I are in it.
Yeah.
We're cells in this beast called America. More important, we're cells in a wider thing called Western civilization. And I've been committed to saving Western civilization for 20 or 30 years. Sounds absurd, or it used to sound absurd. And now we're called upon to loathe Western civilization. Western civilization invented the abolition of slavery. Western civilization invented environmentalism. Western civilization invented groups that try to protect the environment and try to protect species. None of these things were invented in Chinese civilization. None of them were invented in Russian civilization. None of them were invented in Islamic civilization. They were invented in Western civilization. So if you prize the environment, if you prize a deep concern about the world around you and being able to do something about it, if you prize the abolition of slavery, and the rise of all races, then you better damn well fight like hell for Western civilization, because Islam tells you that it offers you human rights. But when you look into the charter on human rights that was conceived in Egypt about 10 years ago, it's Islamic rights. So what does that mean? There are no rights in Islam. I mean, so this is on the very first page of this document, saying that the real human rights are the human rights offered by Islam. There are no human rights whatsoever. There are only human obligations, human duties. That's all there are. So if you want us to be overtaken by a civilization like that, in which human rights do not exist at all, or China, where human rights do not exist, they're considered to be a weapon used by foreigners like Americans to topple Chinese civilization. So if you want to live under their totalitarianism, where you have to praise Xi Jinping and literally memorize his thoughts, memorize an entire book of his thoughts, if that's what you want for the rest of the world, authoritarianism, totalitarian dictatorship, then yes, throw away Western civilization. But if you prize human rights, if you prize LGBTQ rights, for example, and your right to freedom of speech and to protest, then you better damn well hold on to Western civilization for all it's worth, because Western civilization is the only civilization that has invented these freedoms ever.
Giving me goosebumps, Howard. I'm listening to you and I'm looking at the flag and I'm like, fuck yeah. Just that was, yeah. I do have superlatives for people I talk to. I think the kindest person I've ever interviewed is Charlie Duke, Walked on the Moon. I think the most hardcore person I've ever interviewed, Dale Comstock, former Delta Force. I legitimately, and I'll say this to you on air, I'll say it to you, I legitimately think you're the smartest person I've interviewed. And it's
That's wonderful.
No, and I mean that. And you, because you speak with this confidence, there's no, well, I like my country. It's no, and this is what it is. And if you don't want it, that's fine, but understand what's coming. And it's what you said in your book, or Steve Jobs said, often the ones who are often the ones crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who change the world. Or, a small group of people, it's crazy when we think a small group of people can change the world, but those are the only groups of people that ever had. So I don't think it's absurd at all to say you're trying to save Western civilization. How is it insane at all? Who the fuck's going to do it? When JFK said at the moon by the end of this decade, everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? But sure enough, we did it. We need people like you. And dude, I fucking love talking to you, man. You're the greatest.
Well, once upon a time, back just after 9/11, which I watched from my rooftop, I had two books in mind. My next book was going to be The Big Bang Tango, Quarking in the Social Cosmos, Notes toward a Post-Newtonian Science. But all of a sudden, I realized a need to write a book affirming what Western civilization is all about. Telling you its material miracles, its absolute wonders, its supersized surprises. And I was stuck in bed at the time with my 15-year illness, and my mentor in neurobiology, Ted Coons, came out from NYU to my bedroom. And I said, Ted, which of these two books should I write? My next book of scientific thought, or the book to save Western civilization? And he said, write the book to save Western civilization. Well, because I made that decision, my agent left me. My agent said, no, you just have to keep writing science books. You're not a business writer. How dare you write about the American economy? What the fuck? I founded two successful businesses. One of them was the biggest PR firm in the music industry. I don't have a right to write about that. So I lost him. I lost my publisher. And I spent 7 years with no one wanting the book. And then I find an agent of mine finally found a publisher. And that book is The Genius of the Beast. And sometimes I look at that Genius of the Beast is the one that the sheik who runs Dubai named a racehorse after. That book is called The Beast. The Genius of the Beast is the book that APJ Kalam said was a visionary creation. That is the book. No, that wasn't the book that the Department of Defense threw a forum on. But The Genius of the Beast became an important book. It's the book that one of the founders of the Arab Business and Economic Summit held up in front of a meeting of the Arabian business leaders and said, this book contains the future of Dubai. And in its own way, it's about cosmic creativity. And it's about human creativity. And it's about it's about the Western system, which it says breaks down to three elements. One is government, one is private industry, and one is the protest industry. No other civilization has invented the protest industry. We've had it ever since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in 1780. The protest industry started as an anti-slavery movement, and it achieved its aims in 28 years. After 28 years of lobbying and activism, they got a law passed outlawing slavery in Britain. And no other civilization has ever invented a protest industry. And these three elements, the government, private industry, and the protest industry, operate in a dynamic balance. They're always pushing against each other, and in the process, they're producing something larger than themselves. And that something that larger than themselves is Western civilization. And believe me, under Western civilization, the following things have happened. The rate of murder, the rate of violent human death, the rate of war has gone down since 1650 to a tenth of what it was, and to a tenth of what it is in those wonderful indigenous tribes that live in harmony with each other and at peace with nature. No, they have a violence rate 10 times our violence rate. We have increased peace by a factor of 10. We've increased the wages of the lowest paid worker by a factor of 7. One personal assistant in 2000 in London earned as much as an entire tenement full of Irish dock workers that earned back in 1850. We've increased the average height by 4 inches in the last 100 years. We've increased the average IQ by 35 points. 35 points
Jesus.
Since 1916, when the first Stanford Binet IQ test was given. And we've produced all of these riches without realizing we've produced them. So the bottom line is that if our great-grandparents could add 35 points to our IQ, then we owe at least another 35 points to our grandkids. If our great-grandparents could increase the factor of peace in the world by a factor of 10, we owe another factor of 10 to our great-grandkids. If our great-grandparents could increase the salary for the poorest paid worker by a factor of 7, we owe another factor of 7 increase to our great-grandkids. And if our great-grandparents could increase the average height by 4 inches, we owe another 4 inches to our great-grandkids. Those are our obligations under Western civilization. And if Western civilization dies, the ability to create those things will die along with it. Although the Chinese will pick up as many scraps and pieces, and they already have, of what makes our civilization work, but they don't have freedom of speech at all. They don't have tolerance of minorities, even though they claim to. They don't have freedom to gather and protest the way we do, and they don't have rights. Rights don't exist in Chinese society, no matter what they say, using the language of human rights. So we're at a choice point. We fight for our civilization, and I don't mean bloodily. We do it competitively. We recognize that our infrastructure is now 50 years behind, and that we need to move it not just up to the level of Kuala Lumpur and be another third-rate nation. We have to move it to the 23rd century.
We got to be number one.
So that's it. That's my
Howard Bloom, 2024. He's running for office. He thinks he's not, but he is. Howard, thank you so much. Global Brain, everyone. Get it on Audible. It'll melt your brain. And I've kept you for 7 minutes longer than I said I would. It is always a pleasure talking to you. I truly mean this when I say I love you, Howard. I love talking to you. You've had a profound impact on my life, and I cannot wait for the next interview.
Well, that's terrific, because I enjoy talking to you. You say some absolutely fucking goddamn brilliant things.
Well, that's going to be, I'm going to clip that and send it to Spotify and be like, this is why I need a contract. Howard, thank you so much, man. I'll email you and we'll set up the next one. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Okay, terrific. Have a good night, Tommy.
You